All right, so this is going to be my first little movie review. Um, Not sure. This is kind of an obscure movie. I'm not sure if anyone's seen it, but I tell you what, everyone should see it. It's called Come and See, and it came out in 1985. And believe it or not, it comes out of communist Russia. So that's one of the things that surprised me is just how well the movie is made. That the acting is really, the acting is on point. The cinematography, the directing, like the camera's kind of moving the whole time. It's almost like you're there. You know what I mean? It's they just did a really good job. Um, and so the way I'm gonna run this little movie review thing is I'm gonna do like a quick rundown of the plot. I'm gonna try not to give out any spoilers. If I'm giving out any spoilers, I'll warn you beforehand so you don't, so you can see the movie and not have it be ruined. And then at the end, I'll show y'all some screenshots that I took from the movie because a lot of times when I'm watching a movie, I'll see something and think to myself, like, that would make a really awesome photograph. So I'll just take a screenshot. So I've got just a million screenshots on my computer that I never do anything with, but now I'm going to start putting them in my movie reviews. Um, and now the reason I kind of got into movies the way I did is the first time I quit smoking weed, what ended up taking its place, which I didn't plan on, it didn't, this is just the way it worked out. I just started watching movies at night when I had nothing else to do. And all of a sudden, since I hadn't been smoking anymore, all of a sudden my mind was a lot sharper and I was picking up on all these insights and lessons. So, um, I'll go through the movie on this channel and I'll tell you what insights and lessons I kind of figured out while I was watching the movie, and then at the end, I'll show you some screenshots. So this movie is called Come and See. And now the setup here is it takes place in the early 40s when Germany invaded Russia. Um, the climate of the world at this time was Germany was enraged. They were very angry. Um, After World War One, the world put a lot of sanctions on Germany. They took a lot of territory from Germany, and you know, Germany was not looking too good. But then this is why they loved Hitler so much because he managed to give Germany like a booming economy under these circumstances. Like the German economy was like one of the best in the world at this time, even with the world putting all these trade sanctions and they had taken a bunch of territory from Germany, but still the you got to hand it to that government that Hitler was running. They had the economy booming, so the people loved Hitler. Okay, so you also got to realize a lot of the things we've learned about World War II are there's a spin on it. Like we're taught that these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. It wasn't that simple. There were no good guys. I'll put it to you that way. So, um, so now the reason Germany invaded Russia was because they wanted to strike first. They felt Russia was going to invade Germany, so they wanted to get a jump on them. Plus, they wanted to eradicate communism, which I don't blame them for that. Communism is a bad thing. That's my opinion. So Germany invades Russia. Now, this movie takes place in Belarus, which is the country right above Russia, but I believe it was a part of Soviet Russia. And now, to be honest, I'm not even sure if Belarus was a country back then, but that's where this movie takes place. Another thing you got to realize is the map of the world that you are familiar with has only been that way since the end of World War II. And, World War One and World War II kind of shaped the world into what it is today. Before that, it wasn't like this. It wasn't as organized, which in my opinion was a good thing. We don't, I don't want to get too political here, but in my opinion, the reason we're all getting screwed so hard is because we're living in these huge territories, these countries, with these huge governments that are completely inaccessible to us. They operate in a whole different world. The way the world should be, in my opinion, is we should be in like city states with local governments that make all the decisions and no like national government that controls like huge territories. And I believe in in the future, this is what it's going to end up, you know, this is how the world is going to end up shaping itself because this current system is not working. It's simply not working. There's, a lot of people don't notice, but we'll see what happens. My guess is within the next couple of 100 years, the world is going to be a very different place. There's not going to be governments are going to be a lot smaller, territories are going to be a lot smaller, and people are going to have a lot more power and control. That's my guess. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, so in the movie, um, when it starts off, it's just this older guy kind of yelling into the woods. You don't even know who he's yelling at, but you find out soon enough that he's yelling at a couple of kids and he's telling them to stop digging and like, oh, you're going to get in trouble and this and that. And he's angry, he's upset. And eventually he just gives up. He's like, whatever, you know, do what you're going to do. But the situation is and right off the bat you can tell this is not going to be some stupid brainless movie. You can tell that it's going to be something different. Yeah, I could, you know what I mean? So when the guy leaves, you see these two kids, they're digging around. I guess they're digging around in some old maybe World War I battlefield or something, but as it turns out they're trying to find guns because they want to join the Belarusian resistance. They want to join like the local militia, but you need a gun to join. So they're trying to find some guns. Anyways, the kid ends up digging up a gun eventually. He goes back to his little farming village, and his mother is very upset with him. She does not want him to join the army. She's angry. She's yelling at him, and she's saying, "You're going to get us killed." I guess the reason she's saying that is because eventually the Germans are going to come through that village, and they're going to realize that in this household, the husband and the son are missing, and I guess they're just going to assume that they're fighting against them and it's going to get the family in trouble. That's my guess as to why she's telling him that he's going to get them all killed by going and joining the army. I'm not really sure exactly, but she's very upset. And he's got these two adorable younger sisters, maybe 5 years old. They're like twins. Um, and as his mother's like yelling at him, he's like chuckling and like winking at his sisters and stuff, you know. It's like you just like this family. You like the kid, and me personally, I just liked their family. You know what I mean? I didn't want to see them suffer. Already in the movie, I'm thinking to myself, man, I hope these people end up being all right, you know? But as the movie goes on, I'm telling you, this is a disturbing movie, and you'll see in the screenshots when I show you at the end. But I'm not going to talk during the screenshots. I'm just going to like the last minute or two of this little review is just going to be screenshots from the movie, and you can get an idea of the atmosphere of the movie. But so, his mother's yelling at him, trying to talk him out of joining. He's basically ignoring her. He doesn't care. And then the Belarusian militia comes through to pick him up. And these guys are some characters too. It's like you just kind of like these people. You know what I mean? Anyways, they pick him up. They take him. And his mother's real upset. You know, she's upset, but he goes anyway. He doesn't care. He wants to fight the Germans. So he gets to the base camp and he's like, a kid in a candy factory. He's excited. He can't wait. And as it turns out, the next day or two, and he sees this younger chick running around the camp too. He doesn't realize that it's like the officer's paramour or whatever, but she's like his age. Um, and you know, the kid's very naive. You know what I mean? And so the next day, the head officer is basically telling him like, yeah, we're gonna go to the front line now. If anybody's sick or if anybody doesn't want to go, let me know now. We don't want to get halfway there and have you slowing us down and everything. If anything's wrong with anyone, tell me now. There's no shame in it. We need people to stay back at the base anyway. They have, like a base camp. And nobody's saying anything. Everybody wants to go. But then this one dude is like, yo, my boots are shot. And they show his boots and they're like falling apart. And the officer's like, switch with the new kid. The new kid's staying anyway. So they switch boots, and the militia leaves, and the kid is left there kind of by himself, and he's very upset. He wanted to go fight, and but they're not going to take the brand new kid because he don't know nothing, and he's just going to get in the way. But he don't get that. He takes it like personally, and he's all upset and he's crying, and then he runs into the girl, and she's crying too because the officer left, and it's like her boyfriend or whatever. And they kind of, they're talking to each other or whatever, and she's just kind of teasing him and messing with him. She's been through a lot more in life. This kid is brand new. He just came straight off the farm. And he doesn't realize that she's like the concubine of the officer, and he's like, "Why were you all dressed up this morning? Like, I don't get it." And she's looking at him like, "Are you a moron?" But they're just kind of chuckling and getting to know each other, and then all of a sudden bombs start dropping, and the Germans start parachuting in, and they've got to hide. This kid, yeah, he's got a box of ammo and he's got a rifle, but he ain't ready to take on the German SS. You know what I mean? So he just hides, which is a wise move. He had no chance. And so then they build a little, shelter in the woods, and they hide and they sleep that night. The next day, um, they can't go back to the base camp. It's basically been overrun with Germans. So he decides to take her back to his village. They go back to his village and nobody's there. He don't know what happened to him, but he's thinking they're just hiding. He's not thinking, he ain't thinking much of it. And he finds some soup that was in his house, which I guess his mother was in the process of making right when they had to all leave or whatever. And so he's offering the girl some soup and he's eating it, and the girl just gets sick to her stomach because there's like flies everywhere. And anyways, he's like, "All right, I think I know where the people are. They're probably hiding in the marsh, which is not far from here. Let's go find my village." And so he takes her, and he's like all excited. He's running. She's running with him. But as they're running away from the village, she looks back, and behind one of the barns is a bunch of bodies. And she's so freaked out, she don't even say nothing. He didn't even see it. He wants to go find his village, but she don't say nothing. As they're going to find the village, um, he's kind of freaking out at this point. And so is she. But they run into one of the Belarusian village people as they're searching in the marsh, and he takes them to the village full of people. I don't want to tell you what happened, but let's just say the Germans came through the village and did a lot of damage to these people. So these people are hiding in the marsh, the ones who were able to escape. Maybe 100, 200 people, mostly women and kids, a couple of dudes. Um, and so now what happens is he's there for a couple of days and he's very depressed. His family is gone. I don't want to give away too much. You got to see the movie. Um, but so the dudes in the village, what they have to do is they've got to go out and find food and supplies for these village people who are hiding in the woods. They need food. They can't just eat grass. So the dudes have to take what few rifles they have and go out and find food and supplies. Now, here's one of the lessons I learned from this movie is modern people, the way we operate, we wouldn't even, you got the manosphere, you got the feminists, everyone hates each other, you got different races and religions, nobody gets along. In people like us who are just constantly bickering and fighting over everything, we wouldn't be able to function in this situation because it would just be a constant fight over, oh, well, the women can do it too. Why can't we go find the supplies? You know what I mean? So modern people are really messed up in a lot of ways that, you don't even realize it till you see a movie like this and you realize that men and women need to work together. You can't be bickering and fighting over everything. We have our strengths, women have their strengths, and that's the way it is. That's the way God made us, and you know what I'm saying? So I tell you what, you know, if God forbid, if we ended up in a war zone in this country, I would have no tolerance for nonsense like that. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to be going out every day and risking my life to bring back food and supplies, then you better do what you can to help us, And you know, what choice do you have? You gonna let everyone starve? Like what? I would rather die by a battle than starve. So yeah, I'd be out there looking for supplies for sure. Um, but modern people, are we even cohesive enough to pull that off? I don't know. But anyways, he goes out with the other dudes in the village. There's only a couple of them. There's not many. And they get into a couple firefights with the Germans. There's Germans everywhere. And it gets to a point where they end up trying to steal a cow from another village. They're trying to steal from their own people at this point because they can't just let their village starve in the woods over there. So they try to steal a cow from this village. Very unlucky for them, the Germans start attacking at this point, and there's a firefight. And the kid ends up stuck in this village as the Germans come through. And now this is where you're going to learn what happens when one group of people has all the weapons and one group of people has no weapons. So, hopefully you're getting my point here. I don't want to be too overt, but don't ever give up your right to defend yourself because you're leaving yourself at the mercy of other people who, under the right circumstances, they're going to act like animals. What's happening in this village is human nature. You may think like, oh, well, that was the Nazis. They're just evil. No, this is what everyone does in war. America was doing the same things in Vietnam, stealing the women, stealing the young girls and abusing them. This is what happens. This is human nature. When there's no one to answer to and everyone can just do whatever they want and they have all the power and all the weapons, it's human nature. It's rare for a person to not abuse power. You can think what you want, but this is the reality now. You know, and here's the thing with this movie: the Germans are doing a lot of terrible things, but you got to realize that when Russia invaded Germany later on in World War II, they were doing the same things. Guess what? When America came through, we were doing the same things. This is what happens in war. So don't ever let them fool you into giving up your right to defend yourself because watch this movie and see what happens. This is what happens. So he ends up kind of escaping the village. I'm not going to give away too much. You'll see some things in the screenshots. And what ends up happening is the Belarusian militia ends up coming through and catching some Germans. Now you'll see what happens when one group of people has all the weapons and another group doesn't. They get their revenge. And I'm telling you, you don't want to get caught without a weapon in a war zone. I can tell you that much. So thank God in America we've got the Second Amendment. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And I'll never give that right up. I can tell you that much. And I can tell you something else. If you ever are in like a war zone, you better stick with the people who have the weapons. You do not want to get caught by the enemy without a weapon. Because watch this movie and watch what happens. Because that's what's going to happen. So, you know, I guess I don't want to give away too much. That's all I'm going to say about it. So, I believe that everyone should see this movie. I think it's an important movie. It's a disturbing movie, but it's a powerful movie. It's one of those movies where once you start watching it, for me, I was like glued to it. Um, and then when it was over, you're like relieved. And, you know, you see how this kid ages. I don't even know how they did this, if it was with special effects and makeup or whatever, but in the beginning of the movie, he's like this innocent little kid, maybe, I don't know, 16 or so. By the end of the movie, you can tell he's still a kid, but he looks different and you'll see. I mean, it's a crazy movie. And so the main things I learned from this movie are there are no good guys in a war zone. Don't trust don't trust that people are not going to abuse their power. If they have all the power, you know, it's very rare for a person to not abuse power. So you don't want to get caught by the people with the weapons and not have a weapon. So, this movie it teaches you a lot about human nature. And like I said, there is no these are the bad guys, these are the good guys. In a war, it seems to me that everyone's a bad guy. So, you know, don't don't try to rely on yourself as much as you can and be prepared for anything. That's my advice. And yeah, it's a great movie and it's a powerful movie. And if you've seen it, you know, give your opinion in the comments, but try not to give away any spoilers for the people who haven't seen it because the less you know about this movie, the better. That's why I've given such a vague description because you don't want to know what's going to happen. It's better to just see it how it works out. And the movie's kind of ahead of its time as far as the directing and cinematography and everything. It's almost like a Quentin Tarantino movie or something. But yeah, so I guess that's the end of my first review, and I will show you all the screenshots now. Everybody have a good one, and I'll see you all in the next one.